Growing hostas in pots is very rewarding. They are easy to grow, tough old things, and at this time of year they're just starting to emerge from under the soil and putting these magnificent huge buds up. We've been buying quite a few specimens over the last season because this little collection of pots gave such a beautiful display, and these buds are quite typical of some of the larger leaf varieties as they start emerging. We've got quite a bit of pot damage here, and a lot of these are going to need repotting. Around the corner I've got one that's been growing against a wall that we're going to show you how to divide and pot these up, and they're very easy at this time of year. It's an ideal time to do that, so let's go and have a look at that one. Here we are just on the back wall of one of the barns where this little beauty's been growing away for probably 3 or 4 years now. You can just see how congested that clump's become and how expanded it is. We've got another little area of an identical one that's just been moved round to the corner a number of years ago. You can see just with the extra little bit of protection it's getting there how advanced that leaf bud is starting to unravel. But this is an ideal stage at this growth to dig this up and bare root it and to divide the clump, and we should hopefully get maybe half a dozen fresh good clumps of hosta to grow away this season. So I'm going to go and get some tools and we'll see how easy this one comes up. Well, I've had to work my way right the way around this clump. The roots really are quite fibrous and quite deep, and it's not a great soil this. It's right on the edge of an old barn where it's compacted building rubble. You can see the brick in the base there, and we've got most of the root up, and we're going to end up lifting quite a large lump of hosta out of the ground here. So I'm going to lift this now into a wheelbarrow and we'll start taking some of the soil away from it. Well, here is that clump lifted into a wheelbarrow. You can see where it was growing against the side of a brick, but just look at the fibrous, thick nature of this root. Now this is almost impossible to actually bare root and divide in a traditional way of trying to get all the soil off. So what we're looking to do with this is to divide it into clumps, and you can tell just looking at the growth rate of it where we're going to divide this. So I'm going to take one clump off there, another clump off there, and we'll probably try splitting this remainder into 4 further clumps. And the way to do this is to get it on a firm flat surface. We're just going to put it on the lawn, couple of spades, and we're basically just going to cut through this root and make those little clumps ready for replanting. So here we go, the first cut. See how we get on with this. They're really tough, so I'm going to have to really ram it through the clump. There's one. I'm going to position it across the top of that clump for... There we go. Look at that. Now, you're always going to lose a few little buds. Don't worry about that. You've got plenty here in this crown to replant. And just look at that. For replanting as a cracking little hosta plant, that's going to put up plenty of leaf. It's a nice size to go in a decent sized pot, so that's definitely one. Let's go for the second cut here, see if I can get across there. So we've got this second clump. Lovely, there we go. Cut through that crown, just try and prise some of the roots off the bottom so they come away with it, ready for planting. That's 2. Now this is where it gets a little tricky because there's not a clear divide on here. I'm probably going to go in there and then again back over here to make 3. Let's see how we get on with that. There we go, 1. I think I can go across there as well. That's a little tricky, not gone right the way down through the root because I've got some brick in there. There we go. Oh, sorry, worm. Right, so there's my 3rd lovely clump. There's the 4th, and this large 5th one. I could probably divide that again, but what I'm probably going to do is replant that into the hole with some fresh compost. So we've got the parent plant in some fresh compost growing away, and we can repeat this process every couple of years and multiply up our hosta stock. I'm going to plant a couple of these into pots So we've got some potted hosta to move around at various times of the year. That should be lovely. I can't remember what this variety is. I think it's a variegated green and white, and certainly looking at the emerging leaf over there, I think that's the case. But we'll see how this one goes. Let's get some planted back in. So I've got my pot that I'm going to do my pot grown specimen in. Broken bit of tile or some crock in the bottom. I've also managed to get some garden compost that we're going to use to pot this up. We'll just start building up a layer on the floor of that and select which one of these we're going to use in here. I'm going to use the big one to plant back, and I think this original first cut that we took off here. Now, levels, it's important to get this growing. You want the level just to be a little bit higher than it was growing, just to cover these roots that have worked their way to the surface. Hostas do tend to put their roots up, the fibrous roots, and grow across the surface, so it's quite a good idea to try covering them with compost, just with a short layer, or a very thin layer each year. And I can certainly get this level up a little higher on this one. Let's bring that in now. I think that's going to be more like it. I think that's just going to be about right. And then again, planting in with plenty of compost. By doing it at this time of year, you've not got to worry about damaging those nice, tough buds that are on the surface. You can just work your compost away from those. Firm it right in all the way around so there's no air pockets under it. And plenty of compost to get the level up. And then most of this over the crown's going to wash away when we water it. So I'd say that's just about right. Can always put a bit more compost in over the next couple of days. But there's my first one planted. I'm probably going to do another. I think I've got another couple of terracotta pots to pot on with these. But what I'm going to do now is replant the original back into the hole. So for that I'm going to use some of this compost to fill the hole back up and then replant, just as we've done with this potted version. So here we have the original plant back in the hole, and we're now going to come in and just fill this back in all around it with the fresh compost, which will hopefully see this growing away. We'll give it a good water when we're finished, and that should fill this area over the next couple of years. And that's how you divide, cut up and replant your hostas.